Long ago, there was a land called Hyrule, created by beings of supreme divinity.
That right there, the first notes of the Lost Woods theme, or Saria's theme, whatever. It's a wasp sting of nostalgia. It's a goddamn gunshot to the back of the head, and the bullets bursting through your skull is made up of gunpowder and memories. It's a fucking curb stomp, and your teeth are on the pavement of the roads you've already traveled. Surrounded by resplendent choirs, genuine orchestration, and it's fully voiced too. And I don't think I like it. Just an Ocarina of Time remake, huh?
Created by beings of supreme divinity.
Fucking... I'm not gonna stall this with answering what is a remake. We've gotten countless remasters and the sort to solidify some sort of demark, sprucing up an already existing base or building from the ground up when technology, finally hits an echelon or something. But what is the point of a remake? Why is the thing done? The most amicable explanations entail accessibility for playing classics on modern hardware that might no longer be available otherwise, or it's a great way to introduce a legendary title to series newcomers or new gens altogether. The vast majority of gamers aren't going to explore the world of emulation for themselves or other ways they can access all the countless video games preserved by dedicated fans. So a remake or a remaster is the best way to get your time with an old game. I also don't think it can be ignored that accessibility doesn't just mean the game's availability to the casual audience, but literal accessibility. Remakes or remasters can spruce up unhospitable features, glitches, or the performance of a game. I don't mind when a game gets chuggy and a bit wacky silly, but that's just me. I've also been known to get a little motion sick from the Little Mermaid ride in Disney World Orlando, so I get it. Some people get legit sick from a horrid performance, or even only 30 frames per second. I suppose it depends for me too, because have you seen the original Super Nintendo Star Fox? That is nauseating for anyone. It's like a janked up high-speed Rorschach test. It's really no wonder that they remade Star Fox from the ground up with some added features and stability for the Nintendo 64, but that isn't Ocarina of Time. That's the Ocarina of Time remake. Star Fox 2026 isn't Star Fox 64. It isn't Star Fox 64 3D, or Star Fox Zero, or Star Fox for the Super Nintendo Entertainment System. It's Star Fox 2026 for the Nintendo Switch 2. It's a different game. It's the same game, right? Yeah, but also except it's also not. It's literally not the same game. I'm not lying, dude. Look, it's got like its own cartridge and shit. It was developed by Valen Studios, not Nintendo. You understand what I'm getting at with obtuseness, right? A remake is objectively not the experience of the original. You are playing literally, and I do mean that as literally, a different game. It doesn't matter the faithfulness. This isn't Sunday Mass. This is fuck-ass video games. And when the sound design and graphics and performance and context are all different, then it is a different experience. So then I should consider if remakes deserve to exist on their own merit just as something different, right? That gets a maybe from me. I honestly might even say that's valid, but I have my hindrances, I have my grievances. If Ocarina of Time never existed and was the next big mainline Zelda game for 2026, the composition wouldn't be what we're seeing right now. A remake can't not exist without the context of its predecessor, and in fact, it is always using that as wind in its sails. Artistry and fancy music and camera work and all this stuff is a slave to the context of the original thing. I'm much easier on remasters despite how exhausting they can be. Fans themselves often mod a fresh look and better performances, and I can see this settle both aspects of improving availability and accessibility of a game. A credit to hardcore fans that maintain and chronicleize every difference of any given remaster or port or re-release. I even get exhausted by the attention to detail and losing a bit of whatever the original experience might might be. You know, I didn't mind switching my Dark Souls 1 PlayStation 3 frames a second playthrough for the remaster earlier this year. Really, really nice to have. Even if, yes, it technically still falls under the rules of not being 100% the genuine original experience, which, you know, I'm imposing myself right now. Do I ever need to go back to Metroid Prime 1 on GameCube when the remaster looks so nice, performs great, given the GameCube game performed amazingly too, which is a massive credit to the unparalleled game design and technical expertise under the roof of Retro Studios at the time. And, you know, it's also portable? No, I never need to, but I certainly do go back to it as a fan and appreciator of the true original experience. It's a nothing is broke, but have some extra slices of cake kind of scenario, you know, for the most part. Nobody wants a 15-year-old game to be repackaged with a few quality of life things and then sold at a premium for another run. I'm not defending that. When people are presented built from the ground up remakes and say something like, I can't wait to experience this game again how I always imagined it as a child, or I just want a fresh coat of paint, don't change anything else. There's a disconnect. Even if said remake were to only be a fresh coat of paint, I feel there is still a fundamental misunderstanding of a remake, and there isn't a true connection to the player as to why they want that remake. Why do you want remakes? You know, plus that's a lie. This is not how you saw the original. I was there. I saw the original with my virgin eyes too, and you know what it looked like to me? It looked like this. Yes, I was immersed and thought it was beautiful, but now it's 2026, and we have the hindsight of better simulations and graphics, and you know how I feel? The same way. Yeah, that gave you the slip. I think it's still beautiful the way it looked when I played it as a child, and I love it still. Video games are the only medium that does this, and I mean as in like quite like this. You know, with this intent, this cyclical retread due to technology catching up. I understand other mediums also have retold stories or made a story again, but that isn't like a remake like it is in video game terms. I don't see people dropping polls online about what movie or show or even anime needs a remake next, but I've seen 5 of those regarding what Zelda game needs a remake next, and we haven't even gotten the Ocarina one yet. Maybe I'm just out of the loop with other communities, but I think of things like anime that is largely a medium of adaptation, besides OVAs and stuff, obviously, but it isn't like remaking the manga necessarily. I mean, to be fair, a lot of anime is only interested in one-to-one adaptation, and on artistic merit, you could argue that's an uninspired remake of the manga. But therein still lies the fact it's not the same experience as reading the original serialization. The difference in medium creates an inherent different experience, whether the cinematic interpretations that go beyond the original work to truly sell itself as something new, or the brand new series that really seems to be going for a faith build. But is it a remake? Is Ghost of the Shell 2026 happening because we finally have the animation technology that we never did in the 90s? What about Ghost in the Shell starring Scarlett Johansson? The new interpretations of previous TV or film? From my experience, a film or series reimagining has much potential insight in wanting to use the same plot to build a different story. Say something new. It's a different director that has their hands on it in a different generation. It has likely, ideally, been decades since the film or series has been made. The triumphant return of Willard in 2003 reflects a whole new generation's perspective opposed to the 1971 original, which is all in itself a big surprise for cinema, an adaptation of the novel Ratman's Notebooks by author Stephen Gilbert. Carefully examining the nuance, I'm not trying to say that remakes are creatively bankrupt from the start. I don't think I'm a hypocrite for my apprehension to the Oot remake or many remakes in general, yet I also simultaneously adore the Final Fantasy VII remake project, given that project is somehow achieving a have your cake and eat it too scenario with its metatextual expectations of what fan demand for a remake of the original was, and also addressing the history and lore of Final Fantasy VII's entire extended universe and mythos to create a new story teetering on the outskirts of a collective conscience while the expected narrative plays out. We'll see how Revelation pays off with its coy and meticulous buildup of something that's different, and borderline actually a sequel and a remake at the same time, but I think it's going to nail the landing. I think Nomura, Sakaguchi, and Hamaguchi, and all the narrative and creative leads are incredibly smart. Yeah, they might even be geniuses. I cover that with a bit more elaboration in my video Final Fantasy VII and artistic integrity. It's a bit old of a video now, you know, the presentation of some of my ideas is unrefined, maybe even a bit disingenuous at times, but I think it's still valuable. Star Fox 2026 also provided plenty of its own value with its expansion of lore and weaving a logical web in regards to level progression. The gameplay is as stellar as ever. It totally revitalized my love for the on-rails shooter and reminded me just how exciting and engaging the type of video game can be, even in the modern era. I suppose its real value was demonstrating that this arcade-style game and Star Fox as a franchise still has a place amongst the Nintendo heavy hitters. But here's a caveat that even Final Fantasy VII R isn't immune to. You could invest all these revelations, into an all-new sequel. I'd argue there's narrative gravitas to the original story of Final Fantasy VII's themes, and a sequel story being told through the lens of a remake. But yeah, Star Fox, falling in love with rail shooters again because of the smooth gameplay and gorgeous immersive visuals and more in-depth time with these characters, that easily could have been done in a bold and exciting new sequel that doesn't just prove that Star Fox is still cool, but all the things it can do now with the tech, rather than limiting its boundaries for the sake of faithfulness to what we know and love Star Fox 64 to be. It's that restriction of expectation, that context of what the original experience is, that not only holds back the artistic identity, but fails to fulfill the promise of being the original experience, just how you remember it, but better in the first place, as if photography made obsolete or saved us from the archaic nature of oil pastels or some shit. Remember, I gave plenty of other reasons for a remake's existence earlier in the video. I'm not out to get people who enjoy remakes for these reasons, but what is better? The pathos of video game remakes in particular are some revisionist fixing an old art project's kinks and dents and bumps with some hindsight and a fancier computer. That is antithetical to the creative process in my eyes. Shadow of the Colossus as an experience is standing in front of a Mark Rothko. Shadow of the Colossus 2018 is a 4K WebP upload of a Mark Rothko. It can be easy to mistake apprehension or critique of modern remakes to be old man yelling at cloud behavior or some shit, but may I posit that it's actually a cycle of remakes retreading old ground with new technology that is in fact fucking old and boring? It's really repetitive. Please, before we do anything new with any potential technology or ingenuity, I have to see the effects ray tracing has on the wet reflective walls of Zora's domain. I need to see my fucking reflection in King Zora's rotund little big tummy. Whoa. I feel bad for Bluepoint, former in-house Sony remaster and remake devs. Is Blast Factory truly their only original video game? Their entire careers were born on the magnitude of their collections, remasters, and remakes. 6 officially developed entries into the Sony Interactive Entertainment ecosystem, including Shadow of the Colossus, twice! I have a lot of thoughts I could delve into regarding the Shadow of the Colossus remake, but to summarize, it's pretty much the same way people feel about the Demon's Souls remake that Bluepoint worked on. It's a lot, and it's just not my la frage. Why did my je ne sais quoi? It's not my style. And what did they, as talented developers with, I'm sure, tons of ideas, have to show for it? A dead studio. I'm not saying they were spirited away and forced to make remakes and remasters. I'm sure it was a joy to work on, maybe. But like, damn, that's all you got to do? Is Shadow of the Colossus 2018 better than 2005? Is Demon's Souls better because my character has uncanny teeth, a face made of Play-Doh, and asthma? I'm not better because I have asthma. I give a lot of benefit of the doubt to what video games are in general when I conjure up a metaphor to evaluate gamer psychology or industry practices if they were to be exercised on classic or modern art. I've done that throughout my videos for a long time. I've argued for video games as their own art form in probably every single one of my videos, and like, they are, obviously. Subtext and themes and music and 2D and 3D art and technical prowess and, in particular, the one-of-a-kind potential for gameplay to invoke the player's heart to preach the narrative of the game to itself through the act of play. Those are the true masterpiece moments. But there's clearly a dissonance with this truth of the medium and industry games. I know that's obvious. I know what I'm talking about right now is fucking obvious. That's the truth of the industry. No shit. I guess even in the 21st century, I feel like complaining about it or something. I know all media hinges against a conundrum of product and passion. You need to be something that ends up successful, i.e. received by many, but you also want to be raw and genuine with your approach to establish a meaningful connection with the viewers of said art. Some video game remakes or remasters are a trial run for developers. Remaking Metroid 2 Return of Samus had not only refined the grammar to Samus Returns, I suppose that builds some, autonomy for the character? I don't know, that's a distinction, but it refined some in-universe lore and connects the mainline franchise to the Prime series, as well as what a Metroid 5 would eventually culminate into. It's an extremely different experience to the original Metroid 2. It's more accessible, although it's arguably less available today than its original counterpart nowadays, which, that's ironic. It also has its own design issues, but it establishes a real vision for Metroid from a new developer, and that was etched into glorious marble to make Metroid Dread. The remake was worth it. It was valuable, artistically interesting for the series in universe and metatextually, and it revived the series. But it's also such tasty bait. The conversations following Mercury Steam's 2 Metroid titles wasn't, damn, I can't wait for them to make a Metroid 6. It was a rumor mill that, oh, they're remaking Super Metroid next. Why the fuck would you remake Super Metroid? Is it not praised even to this day as one of the greatest video games of all time? What is there to do? Why is this necessary? New design, a new art style, there's nothing of value there. It would be something strange. Thankfully, we now know with certainty that Mercury Steam is making Metroid 6, not remaking Metroid 3. But the fact that that's a default direction to go for gamers is fuel for the fire that is this obsession with the retreads. I get it. Nostalgia is fun. Why see what can happen next when you can see what would look like now? I don't know who's responsible for the Ocarina of Time remake, and I don't know what the context for its creation is, but it doesn't take a genius to know it's a safe and likely successful choice to make. It's so safe, a bitch like me can bitch about this subject and still know with certainty I am going to play the game. Call that fanboyism, call it research, call it hypocrisy. Yeah, I will play it for, I guess, all these reasons. I have no doubt the developers cherish the original Ocarina of Time and are working within a collective vision that they feel respects the original while also developing all these new details and components that never could have been achieved on the hardware at the time. Ocarina is a giant lost and found box of so many scrapped ideas and cut content, it feels like you could bring back nowadays and bring forth the oot that never was. But that defeats the purpose. The developers of Ocarina of Time worked and cut diligently all the way to its release in 1998 and managed to bring forth what most still consider, yet again, one of the greatest video games of all time. Plus, people fall short of what that cut content is and how certain ideas get repurposed in future installments. Like, there was no way they were going to bring back the Lost Dungeons in Wind Waker. They became ideas they used for Twilight Princess and thereon. Like, it doesn't exist anymore. We're past that. To us that adore this title, do you value it despite the limited polygons? And I quote, "Even if the remake is bad or makes you mad, the original is always still there for you to play. And ideally, yes, that's true. Video game preservationists be exalted. So then, what needle is being pushed here? What is gotten out of this that is more valuable than a new take, a fresh off-the-block installment? Maybe this is proving grounds for a new dev. Lord knows Nintendo put Grezzo through the ringer before they were allowed to co-develop a new Zelda. It took them 3 remaster remake re-releases before they co-developed Triforce Heroes, and then another still after Link's Awakening to be provided the sauce for Echoes of Wisdom. You know how I feel about that game in my Echoes of Wisdom video. I'm not sure if this is a hazing ritual for another new development team, and frankly, I don't see why a new dev or studio can't just be offered a new game or some DLC as a proving grounds rather than a rehash of what is. What gives me the most pause is the timing. 2 of Nintendo's flagships being remakes this year, focusing on fidelity. I think it works well for Star Fox, and the art and production is cool, but the future vision of The Legend of Zelda is a remake and a movie. I've voiced my concern of what the success of Botu and Totik might bring. I adore those games, as mentioned in my The Future of Zelda video, but it could really lock down what kind of experimentation we see permitted in the series going forward. If not for one thing, I appreciate that the Oot remake is finally providing a new art style for Zelda since 2017. If we're real, since 2019, because, I think the LA remake art style was something new to Zelda 2, but either way, both styles have been used twice and have signified well over a decade of games. So this is at least fresh. Say what you will about young Link's potentially uncanny face. I don't know if I see that. Maybe his head's a bit large for a 7-year-old. I don't know. But I'm sure in motion it will seem a lot prettier to people. I threw out some of those UE5 and Pixar comparisons myself, and I don't think that's totally fair for how little we've seen. I'll try not to fall for the trap of criticizing how a Zelda game looks pre-release. That's a series pastime that always ages poorly. The hyperrealism description isn't quite accurate either. Isn't doing realism in the way of Twilight Princess or the Wii U tech demo. It's definitely got something else to it. I just don't know what that something is for this remake. Or the movie too, in fact. I wouldn't say Legend of Zelda entering the box office isn't experimental, but we know the goal of such a project is to solidify the grand expansion of Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom sales numbers to a likely even more general audience. Am I gatekeeping? Maybe. But if you don't soiree into a little gatekeep while also criticizing the current base, you can get mold under the floorboards or too many metaphors. This is perfect 2 + 2 math to me. I've said it before in my video, but the legacy of Ocarina of Time somewhat flusters me in the copy and pasted Zelda fan it produced. a fan that calls every iteration of Link the hero of time, that yearns in every comment section for that dark grittiness to return, and certainly romanticized the idea of a Hollywood blockbuster throughout the 2000s and the 10s. One that I guess is like Lord of the Rings, but 20% more Japanese. I've never perceived the Zelda franchise as medieval like that. Sure, I know there's castles and walking skeletons and shit, but it's also inspired off of things like Peter Pan, and this tunic boy does weird fairy magic stuff, and it just always slipped into its own aesthetic for me somehow. I don't know what the movie will look like and how it will express these components. If it were up to me, you already have the cinematic Zelda experience. Just watch Princess Mononoke and Neverending Story in one session. There you go. There's your movie. It's animated, it's live action, it's fantasy, it's all the seasonings. But the fan manifestations persisted, so here we are. Ocarina of Time is back on the plate as the main course with a movie scheduled for dessert. And I don't mean to be a hater. I don't want to be a hater. I try to approach everything from a generally positive and fun angle. Not that I'd say I shy from criticism, but my approach is to try and see some beauty and fun in everything in terms of video games I cover. And to some, it might seem like I'm throwing criticism at a game we truly haven't seen in action, we know next to nothing about in terms of scope, presentation, and gameplay and vibes. I certainly don't want to be a content creator who makes videos on hot issues and algorithm chasing, but I can't help the flood of thoughts when it comes to games, let alone Zelda. And truly the deciding factor that convinced myself to put this kind of effort on this video topic was the fact that many of my opinions presented here aren't going to change once we see more of the game or once I've played the game itself. It doesn't matter if Ocarina Remake looks better than we thought or runs buttery smooth or is amazing. I don't care if it's boring but perfect because it's a flawless 1-to-1 remake, or a divisive hot topic because it reinvents a lot of the initial concepts of Ocarina of Time, if it's more creative with its source or not. We could have just done something different then. Even if a remake is fundamentally different than the source material itself, it doesn't replace the thing, but it's also not 100% its own thing either. It's this irritating double entendre of art philosophy. It could even retcon or reinvent story details to make the 3-way Zelda timeline split make more sense, or deposit some lore that makes a timeline merge viable or something, and Lord knows my Zelda lore brain would go haywire for that. It went wild for this, and it will for this. I'm just voicing my caution, my concern, and my annoyance with the trend. It's not like remakes haven't always been a thing. I think complaining about these concepts is as old as the medium of art, frankly, but I want to encourage forward progress. I don't want to settle for remakes even when they're clever or do more than we all bargained for, because mainstream stuff is already heavy on nostalgia culture and pushing LLM regurgitation machines off stolen vision, and you don't have to settle either. New things can be great too. Ocarina of Time is not the only game that can make you feel the way that you recall feeling. I've gotten that from new video games all the time. Anytime I try modern classics people equally herald as masterpieces. I still gotta play Undertale. I don't need our childhood favorites but in 4K. We need curiosity, and you'll find the next thing that makes you feel like a kid again, because that's what you're looking for. Discovery and curiosity is how you search for the finding thing. It's how you find what you're searching for. Whatever. It's too much mush. I will have lots of fun with Oot. I still have no fucking clue how to feel about the movie. It'll probably share a case with the remake of being sure, it's great or something, but why? Let me know what has you feeling apprehensive in video games and media and art. Let me know what has you excited, and remember to stay curious, my friends. If life were a rat race, we wouldn't call it a mischief. Ooh, I fucking nailed that. I nailed that one.